So let's call our meeting to order and ask if you'd all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Hudson?
Here.
District 1 Morstead?
Here.
District 2 Brokaw?
Yes.
District 3 Bernard?
Here.
District 4 Wyland is excused. District 5 O'Malley?
Here.
District 6 Burchill is excused.
Next up on our agenda, we take comments and suggestions from citizens present. If there's anyone in the audience tonight who would like to address the council about any item or matter that is not on tonight's agenda but might have an impact on the city of Hudson or come before the council in a future time, this is your chance to speak. Anyone like to say anything to the council tonight? Okay, we'll move on then to our consent agenda. If you'll read those items, please.
To approve the regular meeting minutes of January 18th, 2010, to place on file the quarterly reports of the city clerk and library director, and the unapproved minutes of the St. Croix EMS Commission meeting of January 19th, 2010, and the Community Access Board meeting of January 26th, 2010. That is all.
Move for approval.
All right, there's a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. Roll call vote.
Morstead?
Yes.
O'Malley?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Brokaw?
Yes.
So the consent agenda is approved 4-0. And we'll move on to Plan Commission. Number 1, consider petition for annexation of approximately 6.84 acres in the town of Hudson. Application filed by Blue Jay Properties LLC, Richard Stout, ordinance number 1-10. And Community Development Director Dennis Darnold is here. Have we corrected the glitch?
All the corrections have been made. The final draft of the annexation agreement has been presented to Jan and Richard Stout. They're agreeable to the terms of the agreement. And the initial payment for some of the fees that'll be required up front is approximately $21,400. In my staff report, I respectfully requested if you would consider suspending the rules and approving the ordinance 1-10 tonight. We've talked about this a couple different times. Everything's in order, and I would hope you'd have confidence that we could suspend the rules and approve the ordinance tonight.
Move to suspend.
There's a motion by Mr. Morissette and second Bernard to suspend the rules towards adoption of ordinance 1-10. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Morstead?
Yes.
O'Malley?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Brokaw?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed, and then the rules are suspended towards adoption.
Move to adopt resolution, what is it, 1-10.
Second.
Ordinance.
Ordinance, sorry.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt 1-10. Any discussion? Denny, you have anything else to add? I think in essence we did have a first reading because we had some discussion on this. And it's been
Yeah, the way our consideration is that I conveyed to the Stouts that to actually send the ordinance for publication, we would want the agreement signed and the payment made, which if we'd had a meeting Monday, then we'd had a couple extra days. Now we basically get that taken care of tonight. The agreement does need to be signed and notarized, so I'll send 3 copies with the Stouts tonight if they can bring them back with payment. They said they're willing to pay the amount that's agreed upon tonight. So if they bring that back tomorrow, everything's signed. We get the mayor and clerk to sign tomorrow, and then we would submit the ordinance for publication on Monday. So it'd go to the newspaper next Thursday, and the ordinance actually would be effective the week after.
Any other questions? Ready to
Mr.
vote?
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Stout are here tonight. Also, Dick Reckoff is here tonight if you have any specific questions for them.
Any questions at all? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes. Congratulations. All right, number 2 is an application for a conditional use permit for a temporary batch concrete plant for 8 to 12 days this next summer at the Mumbach Quarry, 2700 Hanley. Is that a misprint? Is it supposed to be an I? Is it supposed to be Mimbach?
Mimbach is what it's
Oh, no.
supposed to be,
Yeah, that didn't come out of my mouth right, so I'm trying to read it the way it's read, but I realize that isn't right. 2700 Hanley Road, Trierweiler Construction and Supply Company.
Planning Commission recommendation is to approve the conditional use permit with the condition that Trierweiler Construction Supply Company to have a temporary batch concrete plant to Mimbach Quarry, 2700 Hanley Road for 8 to 12 day operation on through July 20th of 2010, and the hours of operation of the plant to be limited from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Something that Mr. Joe Matchey from Trierweiler and I discussed was also adding condition on that they would provide City of Hudson a erosion control deposit of $1,500. So if there is any tracking onto Hanley Road, we'd be able to address that. Typically in that situation, we would notify them that they have to clean it. If they don't clean it within the 2 days, then we can clean it, the city can clean it ourselves and then charge back the cost. There is a number of trucks that would be on this route per day. Again, it's 8 to 12 day period. Approximately 148 trucks per day would be the number. So, you know, it's really one of the contractual obligations with the Wisconsin DOT is that all the haul road conditions, whether it's in the city of Hudson or outside the city of Hudson, has to be, the conditions of the roads have to be videotaped or documented in some form, and both before the operations would occur and then after the operations occur. So if there's any damage, the Trierweiler Construction would be obligated to repair the roads to previous conditions. Mr. Joe Matchey from Trierweiler is here tonight to answer any questions that you may have.
Then
Go ahead, Randy.
just real quick, if, okay, we videotape it and whatnot, it's destroyed. The condition it was in, we just replaced that road out there.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just gonna throw cover potholes and
Well,
fix
they'd
it.
have to repair it to the previous condition.
Mill and
and-
overlay it back to the way it was.
Correct.
Okay.
Did he?
And, I mean, Joe, correct me if I mean, but that's,
It has to be documented before the trucks start doing the traversing. Who does the documenting and who pays for it?
Wisconsin DOT does it. That's a good question, because that's the second point I wanted to bring up. I know the city engineer and Tom Zuli also want to be part of that documentation, and we, you know, any of the costs that Bonistru would charge back for that service in behalf of the city of Hudson, hopefully maybe that would be also an additional condition that Trierweiler would pay that charge.
Could I suggest that maybe they want to pay for Tom's time and
Well, that's
Staff.
certainly as you wish to have it considered.
Denny, and I apologize, but you know, I asked for some input from Chuck Schwartz about this, and now I'm seeing that you didn't get emailed in on that, and he sent it back to Devin and I, and I'm not sure who else.
No, I saw it and I
Did you see that?
responded.
Did you have any concerns about any of the questions that he brought up?
No, I mean, a lot of the concerns Mr. Matchey and I have discussed previously. Basically, you know, the haul route would be limited from the entrance to the Mimbach Quarry easterly to the east side of the State Trunk Highway 35 Hanley Road intersection. That would that would be the only haul route other than State Trunk Highway 35 that the trucks could haul on. That includes both the concrete trucks delivering concrete product to the State Trunk Highway Improvement Project, but also any material trucks that are hauling materials, concrete, sand, fly ash into the Mimbach quarry would also be limited to that haul route.
Well, the reason I asked Chuck, because I think the question came up at the Plan Commission, whether the city should have a representative present for the taping, and I think his answer was the city should be present during the taping, so whether it's Tom Zuley or whether it's somebody from, you know, Chuck or Sandy or someone there, we should probably do that according to his recommendation. How about the temporary signage? Do we need temporary signage?
Joe and I did not discuss that. There was some concern whether temporary signage on Hanway Road would be required due to the amount of traffic that'd be on the road during those period of time. You know, certainly, you know, gaining cooperation of Hudson Star Observer to run an article prior to that. We can also send out flyers to some of their local residents. Yeah, I mean, the route's fairly short and it's a pretty limited area. I really question where additional signage is required.
Okay.
No, please.
Why don't you introduce yourself one more time?
My name is Joe Matchy. I'm with Treeweiler Construction Company. As far as additional signing, really the only active spot that I guess I can see that might, I guess, the need may arise itself is right there at the actual exit from Mimbach Quarry. Typically what we have is 500 feet both sides of a driveway like that. There's a truck entering and leaving sign that gets installed, and we'd be more than happy to install that. That wouldn't be any problem.
Okay, what do you say, council?
The one other thing I would bring up is, you know, I keep hearing everybody talking about wanting to, you know, put their people out there to help with this inspection. I mean, it is the state of Wisconsin that's administering the contract. They're the one that they are paying an engineer to document this under their contracts already. So, I mean, as a courtesy, it's more than welcome anybody to come out there too. I guess I don't know that there's a real big concern whether or not, you know, your people are actively there or not actively there. If they'd like to be, I think it's a voluntary thing. Essentially, this haul road item basically puts that section of road under jurisdiction of the state of Wisconsin for that time period, I believe. And that's why they're paying for it, so to speak, by creating a bid item. We bid a price into the contract for haul road maintenance. Sometimes it reflects a crappy road where you know you're going to do a bunch of work. A lot of times you don't expect to do a whole lot of work because roads are in good shape, which is why you'll see a big range in that item from project to project. But anyways, whichever way you decide, I guess we can live with. I just don't want us to be getting into a cost to our company that exceeds any. We're going to spend more protecting against damage than we will actually repairing damage, I guess is all I'm trying to state forward, is that I don't believe there's a real big concern of any real big problems occurring out there at this point. So, but whatever you decide, I guess we'll live with. It's the end result becomes a pretty trivial thing in our permitting process. So, thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to move the approval of the committee recommendation as written and as set before us this evening, with the addition that Treeweiler Construction Supply Company will reimburse the city for any staff time necessary to be spent on site or in working on this project in any way.
I'll second.
You have a second? All right, so there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes. Number 3 are final development plans for Tire Pros, a 6,000 square foot auto service center at 1800 Crestview Drive, Derrick Commercial Contracting.
The Plan Commission recommendation is approval of the final development plans for the 6,000 square foot Tire Pros Auto Service Center at 1800 Crestview Drive, as proposed by Derrick Commercial Contracting. There's only one additional thing. I think I rechecked their landscaping plan. I believe they're like 2 trees short. Pretty minimal, but also their consideration of the landscaping plan. Typically, we try to get the street frontages every 60 feet, but with that busy street intersection of Crestview Drive and Industrial Street, I think the plans that they've submitted is fine for that particular site, along with 2 additional trees. Plan Commission recommends approval.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, there's a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion? Randy?
Oh, I won't. My concern has
Right,
been
yeah.
noted, and I'm not gonna hold it up.
No, out of courtesy to Randy and his concern, I did go out there 3 different times. I watched the traffic very carefully. I certainly, somebody's not paying attention, or if they're driving poorly, accidents can occur. That can occur at any intersection. But I think with the sequencing the lights there, there's a 10-second sequence on northbound traffic that turns the traffic or the lights to red on Crestview Drive. Then it's only a 30-second sequence that you have. So the traffic's not stacked at that intersection very long for northbound traffic. And I think that's the key to that issue.
Okay. Ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries, and development plans are approved. If you would be willing to indulge me in a promise I made to Mr. Stephen Peterson from Frisbee Architect that he would like to try to be earlier on the agenda. I was trying to see who else came tonight and was waiting. I think most of you are leaving now. Most of you, not all of you. But, so I tried to let them leave first, and then we're gonna take Steve, and then we'll get back to our regular order. Would you be okay with that?
This one is here.
Oh, okay. Is that what you were waving at me for? Is you're almost there, so don't make me wait? Okay. All right, we're getting there. For the claims, we did not have a Finance Committee meeting this evening, so everything that's marked under Finance Committee, as noted there was no meeting because we didn't have a quorum. And so for the claims, what we've done is 3 of us have reviewed them and sort of acted as a substitute Finance Committee, and Mr. O'Malley, myself, and Lori have signed on those. We think that this meets
Yeah.
everything. Would the 2 of you like to review the actual claims before voting on them tonight, since if you would, we can certainly postpone it to the end, and there they are sitting there, so if you want to look at them. Otherwise, we can vote now.
Oh, no.
If you want to approve them now, we need a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. And any discussion? Roll call vote.
Morset?
Yes.
O'Malley?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Brokaw?
Yes.
Okay, so the claims are approved. Next, we have applications for operators' licenses. The list is in the packet with the staff recommendation to approve issuance of regular operators' licenses for the period of February 2nd, 2010 to June 30th, 2011. Robin Hobrick, Bridget Kelly, Nicole Klingelhut, Charles Minke, Red Miller Rasmussen, and Michael Rasmussen.
Point of information, if I recuse myself, you don't have enough.
Oh, you don't have a quorum.
True. This item could either be postponed, in which case it's potential that some of these folks would be not able to engage in their employment for the next 2 weeks. You know, the decision about whether to recuse yourself and whether you have a conflict is always really up to you. I've never understood your conflict on these operators' licenses, so that's not to twist your arm, but
I think there's nothing relating to your place of employment or
Well,
your stores, so.
there actually, well, there is.
Oh, there is.
There's an individual on here.
Okay.
I
Oh,
think
there
you
is.
probably
Then,
will have
But
to
it's not gonna affect
Then we
her
have to
employment, so
postpone.
if you wanna take her off and then go with the others.
oh. Yes, we could take them one at a time, or we could group them differently if, whoever made the motion in the second would have to agree to that. Do you understand what he's saying? Is it would be approving 5 of the 6 and postponing 1 because of potential conflict. What do you say? You want
Yeah,
to?
I think that's the way to do it. I don't want to interfere with these people's employment.
Yeah.
Neither do
But
I.
just tell us who
Okay.
we're taking
Yeah.
off.
Bridget Kelly.
Bridget,
Okay.
okay.
Bridget Kelly, so would you be open to making that a separate one, removing that from your
Yeah,
motion?
we can do that in 2 weeks. That's no problem for Bridget.
Nope.
Well, then I'll move that we do approve the remaining license applications with the exception of Bridget Kelly.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Morissette is recused. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say
No,
no.
he's
No, he's not recused. He's got to vote.
Not recused.
Aye.
Can't be recused.
Yeah,
All right,
thank
so
you.
he's voting yes, so it's 4-0 passed. And then I think by consensus, we're just gonna postpone the other one. All right. I'm on the right track now. Okay, number 4, approve the appointment of an agent for the liquor license of Badger Hospitality Incorporated, doing business as Green Mill. And the staff recommendation was to, by Chief Jensen, was that we should approve the change.
So moved.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the new agent is Leanne Fidelity. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes. All right, thank you. Now let's skip from where we are down to the new business for number E. Review preliminary design from Frisbee Architects for Police Department area at 700 First Street. Chief Jensen is here, and he's been working with Mr. Peterson. You had the plan in your packet. Would you like to walk us through it a little bit?
Sure. Do you want these up here, Dean, or do you want?
Yeah, if you put it up there, then they can focus in on it on the television usually.
Just gonna do one at a time here. Well, I'm Stephen Peterson with Frisbee Architects of River Falls, and what we have before you is, and I know that you received smaller versions of these earlier, but we have the lower level plan and main level plan of 700 First Street. And as you're aware, that space is being remodeled for the police department to move into. And the documents show pretty much existing conditions and then the handful of new conditions that are being proposed. Majority of those conditions were proposed originally by the city, by the police department, prior to us actually being involved in the project. And what we have done since that time is just to help refine some of those ideas that were originally presented by Chief Jensen and by other city individuals. And we've also looked at developing the main level entryway a little bit. And so just very briefly, what's contained in the plan here, assuming that most of you are familiar with the building, but those of you who are not, the lower level plan is primarily a parking garage. There's a portion off to the east which is unexcavated, meaning not accessible. And then the most northerly portion of the lower level has existing mechanical and storage spaces in it. And the proposal from the city is to develop some of these just on a very limited basis for storage use, and then specifically to develop a processing area here for bringing evidence into the police department. We would maintain the vast majority of the construction that exists right now, so it's really the development just of this one processing area and the construction immediately adjacent to it. adding or subtracting or modifying a few doors, and that's pretty much the essence of the lower level modifications that are proposed. Move to the main level, and we can back up to that one if you would like. At the main level, we have what we're referring to as a library tenant, and the library tenant would occupy the eastern portion of the building up here, as well as the existing lobby piece of the building, and the police department would take off pretty much from this curved wall here to the north. And again, the idea is to reuse as much of the existing construction as possible. We're looking at a handful of new finishes in a variety of spaces, but not wholesale changes for sure. Architecturally, there's only a couple of areas that are really being developed, and that is at the entry piece. I know that some of you have seen some earlier diagrams that reflected some of this, but the main building entry off of the street is right through here on the south. However, most of us recognize or feel that most patrons for both the library and the police department will actually come in from the north, simply because of the availability of parking and handicap and such. And so a decision was made, at least as a design concept, to look at this vestibule as kind of a shared vestibule for both the police department and the library, and so that we would not be mixing traffic between the two venues. Part of that was done for just the ease of operation, and the fact that the hours are going to be different between the two entities. And so that's certainly part of the decision-making process there. So the proposal is simply to enter into the existing vestibule, and then the creation of a lobby immediately adjacent to it, and then a reporting room immediately adjacent to that, which would also be accessible to the police department proper, to some of the staff there who would be taking the reporting. From that point back, we're really looking at taking down one wall that separates an existing office right now, and that's in this area, just creating a larger office. Taking down another wall in this area, and then creating a couple of doorways or walkways, if you will. And then again, a handful of cosmetic and new finishes. So that's kind of the essence of the project. There's obviously some details, but that's the bulk of it. So understand that the documents that were sent out to you are preliminary. They're certainly not final. These are a reflection of that. And I think our goal for this evening was to get some recommendation for moving forward so that we could develop the final bid documents. So, questions? Yeah.
Two questions. Do you have the size of that lobby, roughly?
It's about 150 square feet. To tell you how long it is on one side or another, it's obviously an odd-shaped space, being five-sided or four-sided, but definitely not a rectangle. So.
And the second question is for the Public Works. Where are we going to keep our janitorial and cleaning supplies for this building? I see one little small janitorial closet, 137.
Right. So we've got, obviously, that's an existing janitorial. It's got a slop sink and such there. There's a small storage closet immediately below that on the lower level as well. So, and of course, you'll note that there's a handful of closets here, and there's, for incidental storage, but I guess that's really a question for Tom and his crew, or for Marty, perhaps.
No, I went over with Tom yesterday, and we took a look at that. They're going to use that small space next to the elevator on the bottom level for storage. And then they're also going to use up against our walls down in the basement there where the evidence room is going to be. They're going to be able to put shelves up along that wall. That will not affect us at all, so that they can store, obviously cleaning materials, toilet paper, and so forth. He wants to put a snow blower down there. That's not going to affect anything. It's not going to take any space away from us. So when I talked to Tom, I don't think it's going to be a big issue of finding a place to storage. The problem we might run into is finding an area for him to work out of for like fixing things. That might be a problem as we go along, but there's also another electrical room down there that has a lot of equipment in it that I believe is going to be coming out, so we might be able to use that as well. So it just, as the project goes along, we'll probably try to find more space for him.
So you've identified that was a need for
Right.
you guys? Because you're only cleaning, are you cleaning the library side too?
Yes.
Okay, so you gotta go in and out.
Right, and there is another closet up on the third floor for the janitor to use up on the second floor for the library. There's one on our level, and then in the basement there's that little small storage area. So
You think it's adequate? Because it does affect time.
right.
I think Marty and I talked and we visited the location, and I think there's enough room to have storage in different locations. There are, a cleaning closet area on the second and the third floor, which, would accommodate, some cleaning supplies and things like that. The thing that I had an issue or concern was if, there should be some kind of a workstation where, he had some type of workbench or area where he can do some repairs or things like that, have some tools and things like that.
You've identified a place or? not
Well,
yet?
that was one of my,
Where
I think
did you
we have
go?
places for, extra products or, toilet paper or
No,
shelves,
working,
things.
you haven't identified a place for a little working room yet.
Well, possibly the one room, the electrical room, where it has some things
Okay.
in it now, if that possibly would be a spot.
But Mike was just saying now that that's probably not
Yeah,
going
but
to be.
everything that's in there will stay, that's where the phone systems will go, and that's where the security system is.
And the mechanical room that the mayor and I had talked about, we went back there, there's piping that goes all the way through there, there's no room whatsoever. So that will be a possibility there. We did talk about, though, right outside those mechanical doors where the air handlers are at, not using that parking space if we didn't want to put a vehicle there. It is possible we might be able to build something that temporarily right there, beside the parking space, that you might be able to work out as well.
What's in this corner? And I know you probably want to use it for something, but if you.
Right.
That little room there?
That little room there, we're looking as our ammo room.
Believe it or not, that's what NMC used it for. When
Yeah.
we first toured there, that was full of their ballistic vests and shotguns, and that was a very secure facility.
Marty, I'd like to ask you a question about your processing of detainees, because something struck me, and maybe not a problem at all. I'm certainly not, Mr. Peters, I'm not trying to create more work for you or to have us build more walls or anything like that, but I noticed that a processing room in the lowest level is for detainees.
No, that processing room is for evidence processing.
Okay.
It's not for person processing, no.
Okay, so when you bring a detainee in,
If we were to bring somebody in to talk to them, if they're under arrest, for the most part, we'll take them to the sheriff's office where we can have them in a secured environment and do that type of work. Otherwise, for the most part, we won't be bringing anybody in that has to be
Okay.
arrested, unless it's a juvenile for some reason that we can't take to the jail, we'll be hanging on to. But we don't anticipate detaining anybody at this location for the present time being.
then the
There's just
issue I
not room
had
for
goes
it.
away. The issue I was conceiving of goes away if we're not, because the elevator that we would use to transport such a detainee is on the east side of the building, and the interview room is on the west side of the building. And it struck me that there was an awful lot of traversing of common area for a detainee who may or may not be intoxicated or may have a wide range of behavior that I know nothing about.
Right. And that's the whole point behind it, is the building is not designed to hold detainees at all. In fact, with the money we're using, we can't even get a security cell down there. So
Okay.
if anybody that needs to be detained, we'll just take them right to the sheriff's office. They have interview rooms there we can use.
Good, then no problem.
Other questions? Lori? Yeah?
No, I talked to Marty earlier today, and he answered the questions I had, so I think if he's comfortable with what we see here,
Move to approve the preliminary plan.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the plan. I'll just point out, from what the library had proposed to us, we've tweaked it in this area. We made that lobby larger, Randy. I don't know, we moved the walls out maybe a foot, Couple
Actually,
feet.
A few feet.
few feet.
Mhm.
And so this reporting room gets larger. I think Marty likes the way the flow of this is now, so this curved wall behind there, the plan is that that's where patrol officers' cubes and things will be. And so as they're present there, if someone comes and needs to write a report, then this becomes sort of a don't know what you'd call it, soft interview room. I mean, you got a place to sit down and take the report, I guess.
It'd be similar to what our lobby is downstairs, obviously much bigger, with a chair and a table so somebody can take a quick report. And since it's right off the patrol section, you know, they can just go take the report and go right back in their area without having to go through a lot of doors. So, and the other good part about this feature is those two doors that were right there were patrol and were administration. Our first design had them being sealed up. Well, now with this design, we can leave them open, which is going to save us money.
Yeah. So with this design, we actually are making better use of what's there. It works better for us, and I did talk with Jim O'Connor, president of the library board, and we went through this, and my impression was that he was all right with that change. I mean, we gave up the corner of our space in order to put the elevator, and really the only kind of give and take there's been is we slid those walls a little further into the lobby, but it really works better, much better, I think, from the police standpoint. Now, that vestibule entry on the north side there in the corner of the L, I've personally had some concern that that may be too small. And I've, the library's architect and library representatives I've spoken with don't share that concern, and honestly it takes money to change that vestibule. What we've finally come up with is we think it'll work like this, and if it seems too tight in the future, we can always go back and do some little remodeling job there. But I think, you know, the consensus seems to be right now that it'll work like that. Okay, so give us a time frame here. If we give preliminary approval, then we meet again in 2 weeks. What will we expect to see as our next phase? Will we have a special meeting? Will we be waiting until then, or how does it go?
I think our hope would be to be complete with the documents before 2 weeks, so we'll have to verify that, but I guess that would suggest a special meeting to verify or approve the final documents.
So to keep things moving on our time schedule, there's a couple of pieces to this puzzle for us to talk about. And this isn't exactly on the agenda, but it's fairly pertinent, so I'm going to take that loophole and drive through it and say that our lease with the library says that we have approval of plans, specifications, designs, and contracts for all remodeling and installations in the library component. They've been under a lot of time pressure, and the thing that needs the most lead time is ordering the elevator to be constructed. Not installed, but it has to be somewhat custom constructed. And there's a library board meeting coming up to approve that, and they're hoping to then get the thing ordered like the next day. Okay, their meeting is on Thursday.
Next Thursday.
No, Monday.
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 Their meeting is this coming Monday.
Yeah.
I feel so we are essentially the landlord in this situation. We have the right to approve everything. Doesn't necessarily mean that we have to micromanage every one of their decisions. I mean, we aren't under any statutory obligation to approve that contract. If you want to approve that, we're going to have a special meeting. We talked about the location of it, and I don't know what other input we would have. Hey, we've got two architects. You're protecting our interests within our part of it. They've got a professional architect working on it, so we had a little bit of trouble getting quorum this week. And we didn't have that item on the agenda for tonight. So that's where it's at. I suspect they're going to approve it on Monday, and unless you want to hold it and have a special meeting on Tuesday, they're going to order on Tuesday, I think. So with that, then the same thing comes up for your part, and we don't necessarily have to wait till the next council meeting. We'll be flexible and have a special meeting if need be to keep things moving on.
Could I suggest that maybe the council members attend the library board meeting next Monday, and if they have issues, they can discuss them in open meeting with the library board?
Yeah, we could do that, but it still wouldn't be an official approval of the...
No, but it'd give the library board a pretty good reading, whether or not to order things on Tuesday morning.
any member of, it'll be a public meeting, so any of you that are interested should come.
Well, I don't think we had a problem with the elevator.
No.
Not right now, quite frankly, if this is the direction we're going, I don't have a problem right now.
No. Neither do I.
Okay, because if you did, then you know, this kind of is the time to say I've got a problem, because things are going to start to get ordered. They will come back to us with final specs, which are currently under development. We'll be coming back with ours, maybe the same night as theirs. I don't know. We might be practically in sync by then. And so 2 weeks from now, there will be a lot of final approval going on for all the designs. But this elevator takes longer. It's what's going to hold up the move. And so I think, you know, I'm fine with it going. As soon as you've approved it, it's been studied to death, I think. So it's just too much oversight to say that we have to come back.
Yeah, I think it's, if you want to approve it, you have to do it in X number of days.
Right.
So,
With that, we've got a motion and a second. Ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. All right, thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
That motion passed, and we'll see you back soon.
Yes. All right. Good night.
Good night.
All right, so then we're back to the Finance Committee agenda, and we have an item, approve updated job description and posting / advertising for the receptionist clerk typist position. And you've got an issue sheet. Dennis Darnold's here. It doesn't have a staff recommendation here, but I think Benny's recommendation is that this should be a full-time position. I guess I'll give you, why don't you tell us what you
read
think?
my last sentence in the staff review. It says, I respectfully request a revised position description to be approved to initiate the process of filling with this recently vacated position and assign the compensation level 11, which is one level above. The reason we're requesting that level compensation increase is to be able to recruit an individual that has technical skills that can fully support both the Community Development Administrative Assistant and the Public Works Administrative Assistant. I think Mayor Knutson knows how strongly I feel about filling this position. It's a critical position for our staff. We have 2 administrative assistants that are right up to their eyeballs all the time in work. And they need assistance, and we need to fill that position with somebody that has the technical skills to help them on day-to-day projects, also to be able to fill in for them. There may be anything from public works projects, that may be assessment projects where we're doing public notices. We have personal property notices that are going out right now. Liz has been working overtime in the last couple of weeks on assessment considerations. I just feel very strongly this position is critical to be able to provide the level of service the city has provided. If it's not filled, with my opinion, the level of service that we have been able to provide, even though our workloads maybe are temporarily down because of the economy, we really need this. Also, this job would be cross-trained for those other 2 administrative positions. So that this individual could fill in if they go on vacations and so forth. I think there's some things that I've been doing, such as word processing, that I could hand over to this person also, which would fill my or give me more flexibility in what I'm doing. So,
Denny, with the changes that you propose in this position, there is no budget paragraph here. Do we have funding that will cover this?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, that position was budgeted for the entire year at the level 10. There's some of the assessment budget that was going to be obligated towards Mike Walls. Mike and I have sat down. We feel his number of hours are going to be substantially reduced from what they originally were. Okay. It's going to provide us some funding. Plus, you know, we just haven't, for the month of January, haven't filled this position and having temporary employee come in, so some of that budget is available also. So certainly I feel very comfortable that we have the budget in place to accommodate this.
Okay, good.
Okay, so we've spent quite a bit of time looking at this and talking about it. And frankly, I had a deep desire that we could somehow combine, utilize existing staff, and maybe this was a chance for us to downsize city staff a little bit. And we do have a hiring freeze on, and what that means is that every position that becomes vacant, we need to come and justify why we still need that position. That's the way we've been interpreting it. And our plan is that municipal court is moving over, and so at least my tentative plan is that municipal court is going to move up to the west end of the third floor, and with some reshuffling of offices, and we've had both Judge Garrity and her staff over here and talk this through, and I think that will work. That's not final. I'm still kind of taking comments on pros and cons and who's got a better idea. So far, I haven't really seen a better idea than that, so I think that's where it's going. With that, they have 1.5 clerical positions. So, you know, right now we've got the two administrative assistants and the one clerk for between Parks and Public Works and planning zoning. And then we'll soon have that additional 1.5. When I asked the municipal court clerks if they could somehow help man this desk, the answer was they'd be willing to try, but it would be hard. I'm not sure, Denny, what did they say? Maybe 3 hours a day at the most, and not every day. And the conclusion, the consensus staff recommendation, I think, from Denny, while he didn't come out and say it, I think both Denny and Devin feel like this should be filled with full-time position. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
I'll move to approve. I think you guys need help up there.
Well, my last plea would be is, I've been here 23 and a half years. I don't think there's any staff person that appreciates the budget constraints that City Hudson's underneath. I've fully cooperated 23 and a half years of budget considerations. I would not be coming to the Common Council if I didn't feel strongly that this position needed to be filled full-time.
I'll second.
All right, so there's a motion and a second.
Could you stipulate that this would be at a level 11?
Sure. I move to approve this position at a level 11 instead of 10
And would you approve also the initiation of the process of advertising for this job?
as well.
Okay. Any discussion?
Do you want to make the motion?
No, I'm fine with your motion. I think your motion is beautifully worded.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we
Did you
got
get a
a
second
motion.
already?
Is the motion now pretty much right what was on Denny's staff sheet, his last paragraph?
Pretty much so, yeah.
All right, that's what I thought. But now we're clear. Any comments?
I think you hit it on the head. Denny and Devin and the folks upstairs know what the need is and can give us a valid assessment of what they
Yeah,
anticipate. And I guess if there's an opportunity to take some of the administrative or the clerical tasks off of Denny's plate also and give him time to do the community development director tasks, I appreciate that too.
If I just make one last comment, this whole review of this position was very much a bottom-up. I mean, our staff, all the staff upstairs was invited to have input. We didn't preclude anybody from making comments how we could better this position, how we can enhance the service to the city of Hudson. It was definitely a bottoms-up consideration, not from myself down consideration.
Danny, I would like to just advise that since this person is in very many cases, the first person that one of our citizens talked to, and sometimes under, in a stressful situation, that you keep in mind that anybody who applies with a background in crisis intervention would be an additional help.
I'll keep that in mind.
Further comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Thank you for your support.
Motion passes. Let's move on from the Finance Committee to Public Works. Number 1 is review the engineering schedule and cost estimates for 2nd and Vine Street intersection improvements project. You've got a staff, an issue sheet, and the staff and committee recommendation was that we should recommend Bonestro to prepare plans and specs for the 2nd and Vine Street intersection with an estimated cost of $14,000 to be funded from the 2010 bond proceeds. All right, and here's Mr. Tom Zulli to answer any questions you have. This is a project that we've talked about a bit over the last few years. We've gone from talking about using the urethane to raise it to the decision that it really probably needs to be completely rebuilt.
We believe so, and I asked Chuck from Bonestros to give us some alternate options. We've already discussed in Public Works that there might be a need to change the radiuses for making turns onto Vine Street. If that were the case, or, you know, that would add definite cost to that due to fire hydrants, street lights, signal control boxes in the way there. So Chuck is planning on bringing back to Public Works this month some options for review and for this project.
Okay, so we've planned this into our projects for this summer. And this is preliminary planning to get there.
Never mind.
I move,
Okay,
excuse me, I'm going to renew my motion from Public Works to authorize BRA to prepare the plans and specs for 2nd and Vine at the estimated cost of totally $14,000.
All right, there's a second?
Second.
I'd like to add to that you did mention funding to come from 2010 bonding. I believe actually it would come from other tax sources from general fund, according to the communication from Betty this afternoon.
Well, that's
that
yet
was
to
more
be decided.
Okay. Well, if you're not going to worry about the money, I'm not going to worry about the money, but it's got to come from somewhere.
Are you referring to her memo that talked about using either the Bryan Fund?
Yes, that's the memo.
Yeah, that, in my opinion, the original committee recommendation was really more proper for this project. I mean, she was asked to find funding sources for the stormwater study project, which may be somewhat different, but that really needs some committee discussion and so on. She couldn't be here tonight, and we neither could we have a finance committee meeting.
Oh, okay.
So
Fine, then.
I think for now we should just approve it the way you sent it out
that's
of
fine.
committee.
Yep.
The problem with using contingency funding on something that you've been planning to do for years, I mean, if you look at our budget process, you know, you've got your general operations funding, you've got your long-term capital projects that we often, it's not bonds, but we sell notes for them. There could be a true emergency thing, and sometimes that's contingency. And then what tends to happen is we have all these things that come up, and you know what? The common thing is staff end up running to Betty and saying, find us a funding source for this. And Betty's scrambling around trying to find funding for an item that really should have properly been in one of those two categories. Either it comes out of this year's operating budget, or it comes out of this year's capital projects, not necessarily money that was put away for vehicles back, you know, some years ago, and we're going to suddenly rob that and use it to do plans and specs on a street project. It's just not, it's not right. Tom doesn't want to have to try to find the money out of his budget, and yet, you know, Tom's going to get $1 million to put towards street projects. This is one of them. I still think this is where the money should come from.
That was my intention. I think the other issue is going to come up with the stormwater issue.
Stormwater. Everything I just said applies there too, although it might be slightly different because it's not currently on the capital projects list, and maybe it should be. All right, well, so there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. All right, Tom. C2. The staff recommendation is to authorize the engineer to begin discussions with the landowner on acquiring land or obtaining an easement to create a stormwater pond. Now, we had a little discussion before the meeting about this as to what the proper protocol is, and I'm not sure we're certain, and I want, before we even discuss this item, I think maybe Catherine should give us a recommendation. Maybe this should be postponed for further legal review.
Well, first let me say, I don't know, I don't have any background in this whole topic in terms of the detention basin, timing, funding, any of that. So if work needs to be done on that by the council,
This is all we've seen.
that might, that maybe should happen before you approach talk to the property owner. And I talked about this with Tom this afternoon. It's a situation where the city might be, it sounds like this is the desired location. There's already water draining there. There's been some discussion over the years with the property owner. It's a gray area as to when you start following, and if you start following eminent domain type procedures. Those procedures contemplate negotiation, but they also contemplate telling the landowner, giving them a brochure, getting an appraisal, giving that all to the landowner. So I'm not sure where the city is at on this project, if it's ready to do that. I think the city would be fine just getting feedback from the landowner as to, okay, are you interested in selling, or would you rather have an easement? So the city kind of knows where the landowner's at. But part of the process, I think you'll want to give them that brochure and get an appraisal, so the city knows what it's doing, what the value is, and the city then provides that to the landowner. I don't know if the city's at that point yet, though, just in terms of this project.
Well, you know, there was a timetable in there, and your timetable was very detailed. It had 6 or 7 steps, and one of the first steps was talk with the landowner, and of course common sense says that might make sense, but I think what I just heard was, you know, maybe we should have a design earlier,
well,
and
I think
then decide who and which landowners we're talking with.
Yeah, I don't know, is it one I just don't know enough about the project.
I'm not sure if you know.
Sure. Our intention was to get a grant, a stormwater grant for next year, and that grant has to be submitted by April 15th. We were just asking permission to start negotiations with the landowner. And if that's what you're saying, we've spoke with them a few times, and that was what we wanted to start the process with, yes.
So you've gotten positive feedback, the landowner is willing to sell or willing to provide an easement? Do you know the piece of property you want?
Yes,
I mean,
yes, I mean, the land has been identified, and it's a storm basin that was included in the 2008 Lake Malu stormwater assessment study.
So you've got a description, a legal description, or?
Of the parcel of land?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we don't, the same questions. We should be having all this information before we go ahead and approve something, which potentially could cost us 50 grand or more.
Well, or why do we need to have all that done before we apply for the grant? If we've already studied it once and it was identified as a site.
Yeah, that's what our thought was, that we're just gonna try to get permission to speak to the resident and apply for the grant. Any negotiations, you know, we're gonna certainly include the city council on that.
Well, I think we should approve the committee recommendation. Do you think any differently about this? I mean, you were on the committee, Pam, you two have studied this.
Yeah, the land has
Anything
been-
you've heard made you change your mind about
No,
going ahead
no,
with this?
It's actually pretty clear cut. The only thing that's unknown is to get a quotation from the landowner as to what's the amount of money you want.
Well, and
And
you
that's
may,
all
I mean,
we're
you-
asking.
I think the council may want to discuss, do you want to get an appraisal?
Well, I think that's going to come along, but I mean, since we have not been able to ask that question, we don't know. This person may say, I'm going to give you the land. We don't know. So why take any additional steps before the landowner says, well, I'll give it to you for nothing, or I want $10 million, or whatever the landowner says, and then we can react accordingly. That's all we're asking for, is authorization to ask the
To have
landowner.
a conversation.
That's it.
We,
Yeah.
you know, we do know what the assessed value of the property is. The city has established an assessed,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
assessed
true.
value. Unless they're gonna grant the property to us, it makes no sense for us to offer something less than what the assessed value is. We can't play both sides of the
Yeah.
issue here. So that's basically gonna be our minimum price that we pay for the land, unless they're willing to grant or have some other consideration. But I think probably that assessed value is probably pretty close to what an appraisal. So I think to use that in a grant application probably is gonna be significant, or be fine at this point. The consideration may be is that there's a difference between what's put in the grant application and what the final agreed prices be. Then that may become a budgetary consideration out from a city funding source versus the grant funding considerations.
Well, and if it's an easement versus fee title, that might,
And I think
But
the city ought to
typically would be
explore both
less.
options.
right.
And we need to know the mindset of the owner. You just want to ask him.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, Tom and I can talk, and we can give him the brochure so the landowner knows what the process is if we get that far along. That's all I'm saying, that we
Sure.
should include that in the process.
We have stumbled into an issue that is one of the most common questions that I tend to get from people these days, and I can hardly let it pass, but the assessed value is not necessarily the fair market value, and when fair market value drops below assessed value as it has recently, that's not necessarily a reason to do a complete citywide assessment. So we actually currently have lots of parcels in the city where the fair market value, were they to be sold like this, might be less than the assessed value. I dare say it's happening every single day. And so before we start establishing a price here in this meeting, I think we need to look at this a little bit and probably talk with them about what it would be. All right, anybody else?
Well, I'm going to move the
On the
committee
motion?
recommendation.
Yep. Did we already have a motion? No.
I don't think
All
so.
right, so Lori seconds it, Scott made the motion. Any more discussion?
We're just doing this basically to get the granting approvals to move forward.
Just to move the process forward.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Motion passes. Next, another stormwater-related thing, and it also comes with the recommendation to approve further study. This is the Downtown Flood Improvement Study. And so the committee recommendation, now we're on item 3, Public Works Committee Downtown Flood Improvement Study. Committee recommendation was to recommend proceeding with tasks 3 through 5 of the Downtown Flood Improvement Study contingent on a funding source. There has been local flooding in areas of downtown, Locust Street between 2nd and 3rd, the alley between Vine and Elm and 4th and 5th. There's a manhole at the intersection of 9th and Pitt, and an alley north of Vine between 6th and 7th. What was proposed to us was that there would be a 4-stage process with a 5th supplemental I took that to mean optional step. We did number 1 and 2, I believe last year, was it, Tom?
Last year.
We need to do it. I think it should be funded out of the current stormwater budget, of which we have a budget, and if we can't get it all done for that, we need to postpone and do less than phases 3 through 5. Maybe we can only afford to do 3 or 4 or 3 and 4.
I believe there may be a, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but we are going to have this done for the DNR by a date certain, aren't we, in the next year or two?
We're going to have stormwater regulations shortly, and
Yeah, we're going to have to
MS4
do this
stormwater
with some
regulations.
timeliness.
Well, it's true that there are many unfunded mandates that come down, and there's a big one coming on us soon. After the census, we will have reached a new category, and there are these, what's it called, MS4,
MS4 regulations.
which are federal clean water mandates coming down, ministered by the state DNR, which are going to put great burdens on what we need to do with stormwater. I feel like we've already done a good job with stormwater. This is probably as good a time as any to tell you that, the staff recommendation for 2 years now has been that we ought to institute a stormwater utility with a separate funding source, i.e. levy an annual fee on every homeowner or property owner in the city every year and put that money into a segregated stormwater utility fund. This is happening in communities around the state of Wisconsin right now, partly because we've got the levy limit law, which restricts what you can spend, and so you've got that as pressure to try to, you gotta stay within certain limits, and partly because you've got these mandates that are coming down. North Hudson is studying this, and they haven't enacted their fee yet. I mean, other communities have. I was told that, in some places there's a fee of $50 to $300 per homeowner is coming just to go in on top of your property taxes. And frankly, I've been resisting the whole notion. So my position has been we need to improve our stormwater system, but we need to do it within our existing current budget. Now, that's going to be increasingly difficult to do, and staff is well aware of it, because when you take that approach, then every time you spend more here, something's got to give somewhere else. That's why every time we have a chance to look at cutting the size of government somewhere, we need to look hard at doing it. This staffing position, I wrestled with that for 2 weeks trying to figure out how could we have a smaller staff, and frankly I find that one of the toughest things is to try to shrink the size of government. People that talk about doing it don't realize usually how hard it would be to do it. And instead, what we get is ever increasing unfunded mandates coming from the state and Fed. And that's what it is.
If I might just add one note to what you've said, Mr. Mayor, that I have in my mind's eye right now a picture of all those at home reaching for their phones or their email to contact us. By far, the majority of runoff comes from commercial parking lots and not homes. And businesses up on the hill would be dealing with that. Not to say homeowners would not be impacted, of course they would, but there's more runoff from large expanses of asphalt, which few homeowners have.
So that's a whole nother study, which we've yet to talk about funding. Now, I understand North Hudson is in kind of the final stages of a study that they haven't seen the results of it yet, but it would be the kind of the final stage, and they'll get a number pretty soon of what they'll be asked to put on, and the question is, should we do that? And frankly, I've been dragging my feet on doing it, and there are some, and Scott, maybe you're one of them, and maybe there are others that maybe feel like we should do that. I think we should put that on a future agenda and bring it up and talk about it, because when I brought the question of those funding sources, that's scraping the barrel for ways to pay this, because the staff has been thinking That will ultimately be paid once we have that new revenue source. We're going to have $100,000 a year or something coming in just for stormwater projects. And sure, maybe a lot of that's going to be paid by businesses, but a lot of it's going to be paid by homes too, because it can't be any other way. So that's a whole nother issue. Well, here we are with this one. I think our budget for this year is $10,000 for taking care of our stormwater. That's what Debbie told me. Do you think that's right?
There is, I think it's 10 or 11,000 in the stormwater engineering contractual budget. I think we could take that money out of that, which depletes it, but that's what it's there for. And then we could probably take the remaining out of other public works contractual operating budget. The other option would be is to just do delete task 5 for now and see how these other 2 items come and do that at a later date. I think that was like $2,600 for option 5. Then we would have enough just in our operating budget in stormwater contractual.
So option 5 was supplemental. So we got 1 through 4. We did modeling, stormwater modeling in 3. I mean, that's really the guts of the thing, is figure out where the water's coming from, where is it going, and what can we do to make it better. And then task 4 is to create the summary report. Task 5 was supplemental, a water quality feature identification. As I read this, I thought, well, if we're over budget, maybe the extra thing should go. But what's your recommendation of those 2 that you offered?
I would recommend that we take the 11th or money out of the funds from the stormwater contractual operating budget, delete task number 5.
So moved.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passed, and that takes us to the, consider the 2010 service charge rates. Public Works Committee recommended that the service charge rates be increased by 5% for 2010. They're included on the back supplemental here. And these are what are charged when we either do service for a private homeowner outside of normal street maintenance and things, like if there would be a storm or something is maybe one time, or if we do work for another municipality.
Once in a while, we get requests from the hospital, the government, St. Croix County Government Center to sweep their parking lots or things like that. The other thing we use it for is, say if there's a accident and vehicle knocks down a signal light or street light, then we can charge them for the hourly man-hour rates and for whatever vehicles we use for that accident.
And does this cover for mutual aid requests too? I mean, if we sent equipment on mutual aid, then do we use this schedule? Or is that all free?
Depending on whatever the agreement is.
Yeah. Okay.
Move to approve the committee recommendation of a 5% increase for 2010.
Is there a second? Second by Pam. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. And the motion carries. Okay, we are moving on. We have nothing from public safety, nothing from park board. On new business, we've got A, consider amending municipal code chapter 145-20C regarding the liquor license quota, ordinance number 2-10. I brought this forward for you. I didn't create an issue sheet for it, I guess. I had meant to do that and I forgot. Here's the thing is, we constantly have requests for these. Recently, we loosened up our quota for beer licenses. Years ago, we went tighter on the license quotas for the regular liquor license that a restaurant needs to have full bar service. We tightened those pretty severely compared to state law. Under the state law, There's a system that, according to your population, and it goes by the census every 10 years, and then in the interim, the state demographer does estimates. They provide the estimate to us, and as we reach certain population thresholds, then by the state, we would be allowed to have a certain number of licenses. But the city has had a tighter quota number for some time. There was a loosening of this recently. I don't recall exactly when we did it, but we loosened this up that we would have one license per 650. Help me remember, Nancy, when did we do that? Was that about a year or two ago? Not too distant past. And if we would,
2007.
in 2007, we went down. Do you recall what it was before that? I think
it had the fraction in it.
That's right. So here's the nitty-gritty of how the thing works is you can either have it be 1 per 600 clean, done, and no fractions. In other words, let's say you were small and you had 1,800 population and your quota was 1 per 600 and nothing for the fraction. If you had 1,801 people, you'd still have 3 liquor licenses. If you worded it to say 1 license per 600 population and fraction thereof, then essentially, am I saying this right? Then at 1,801, you would have your 4th license because that one would become a fraction of the next one. And so as we've taken this gradually looser over recent years, there's been some tweaking back and forth about whether you include that or if you don't. Now, I wrote this without the fraction, which right now means by doing this, we would have 1 more liquor license available. If you rewrote it to add the word and fraction thereof, we'd have 2 more available, I believe. We'd either have 2 more right now, or I think we would. We would. Plus, under either of those scenarios, it's very likely that when the census gets done next year, we'll have an additional liquor license available either then or very soon, because I suspect we'll reach the threshold for that next. Now, there is no particular pending application that this is about. And a lot of times what's happened is we've got the Applebee's came, we change our rules so that they can get a license. Green Mail came, we change our rules so they can get a license. And I personally don't like that. I mean, right now there is no specific application. There's no specific pending business, although I've had a number of inquiries about, hey, we would kind of be interested in coming to Hudson, but you know, do you have any liquor license available? And the answer is no. And I can't really promise you when we would. So that's where it's at. It's here for referral, either referral to the committee. In this case, it would be the Finance Committee. Generally deals with licensing. If you're not wanting to do that and you want to take action on it, we could have a first reading and bring it back. We don't have a full council here tonight. This is somewhat of a big issue. So what's your pleasure?
Move for first reading.
First reading. Any second to that?
Second.
Second from Pam. Discussion?
I'd rather deal with it tonight.
You mean in its entirety tonight? Yep. Well, let's deal with the, I mean, so you're voting no on the motion for a first reading because you would rather suspend the rules for a second reading? All right. Any other discussion?
I think it would be a good idea to have a full council present for a decision like this.
Well, there's also community impact here that most of the community is not aware of this proposal, and so I think there's something to be said for letting it be known for a while and then come back and talk about it after we've received feedback. When we last talked about it with the beer license issue, the question was, should we create just 1 more or should we loosen it up so that there are a couple more? Under state law, it's unlimited. A lot of communities, that's absolutely unlimited. We have people come and they say, you limit your beer licenses? Huh. We've taken a pretty conservative approach to that for a good reason because of the history of Hudson and liquor consumption.
And Hudson is routinely referred to as one of the better towns in western Wisconsin to live in.
Correct. So I don't take this lightly, but I think I felt like it was compatible with the spirit of the council, and it deserved discussion here in open, and it seemed like a good time to do it at a time that we don't have any. Now, if you would approve it, what would happen is there will undoubtedly be applications, and probably more than one, and there's a very well laid out procedure to be followed in the code where we look at things like jobs created and tax impact and other beneficial impacts or adverse impacts on the city. So that undoubtedly we'd be back to decide which of the multiple applicants would get this liquor license. But I think it's something to look at.
You know, it's not a secret that most people who have lived in Hudson for a long time have always wanted more restaurants. You can talk to anybody about that. And this community has always been very hard to get any more restaurants, whether it's a steakhouse, whether it's an Olive Garden or whatnot. People sometimes don't want to have to drive over somewhere else to get those type of things. I don't want to hamper it anymore. I mean, I would love to see as many restaurants come in here as possible.
All right. Ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
Okay, so the motion passes with 3-1. And we'll bring it back for a second reading at the next meeting. Next, we've got the disallowance of a claim by Tommy Ade, Resolution 4-10.
Move to suspend the rules.
There's a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Is there a second? There's a second. Any discussion on the motion? Roll call vote.
Morset?
Yes.
O'Malley?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Brokaw?
Yes.
Motion passes. Now you can consider adoption of the resolution.
Move to adopt the resolution to disallow the claim.
And there's a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 4-10. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to point out to anyone who might be viewing that we're not being hard-hearted with this lady who may or may not have sustained some personal injury, but it was on property owned not by the city, and the other person, the other party who did own the property, their insurance company has already accepted the claim.
This is a procedural thing that we need to go through on each and every case like this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes. C is to review and take action on the Information Technology Ad Hoc Committee findings. Our committee consisted of Alderperson Wyland and myself with Mike fully participating. I was mostly listening because it turns out that most of what they were talking about is fairly technical. But I think we actually talked through a lot of options. We, at one point, had laid out, I believe, 5 different plans for how we might structure and locate servers between City Hall and possibly the 2nd Street building. And we came up with a plan. So Mike's here to tell you about that plan as well as some other things we've got going on with technology.
We did consider a number of options, including having servers just in one location and increasing our bandwidth between them. What we finally came up with is to have a scaled down system from what I first proposed at 700 First Street. We would put in a server, a smaller domain controller that would control the police servers, that would perform security audits on them, would allow them in and out of the system. We would not put in a large file server. We would keep our IBM server here where it currently is, and we will have a connection between them, a higher speed Comcast connection that will allow the interconnectivity that we need. This saves approximately $9,500 over the proposal that we first established. Part of the reason we can do that is, you may have noticed, we switched email providers. and you should have issue sheets there that explain how to get into your new email. One of the features that we're already paying for there is file storage. The city of Los Angeles, the city of Washington, D.C., Seattle, Orlando have all gone completely to this for their police, fire, all administrative functions. It has been very functional for them, so we would need less file server space by doing that. And it's something we're already paying for. So the proposal is to put a smaller network at 700 First Street to continue the current system we have here, except for the police server would be functional down there, and to move ahead with that. We need to begin as soon as possible if we're going to have it in place in March so that it can be tested. But that's the proposal for the servers. Any questions on that?
Mike, can I ask you a question kind of relative to this? You mentioned between the two locations that there would be an IT office here and an IT office at the 700 building.
Correct.
And that we would have one full-time person and one half-time person.
Correct.
Maybe I missed out on this, but when did we agree to hire another person?
Last fall in the budget proposal.
Okay.
It was proposed, that's actually one of the reasons we're going to the new mail system. We will save about half of the funding to hire that person is from the savings there. So it was with the budget this last year. The half-time person would focus on the more routine maintenance, the PC maintenance, the fixing things that are broken as they were learning our other systems. So there would be one person there and one person here, and depending on the need, it would move back and forth wherever the main focus was.
The demands on Mike have grown. You might recall there was a proposal that, was it more vacation time?
Mm-hmm.
It's not exactly 1.5 FTEs. You could say that Mike's gone down slightly from, but it'd be hard to know it these last few months. And that halftime person is not here, even though it's, this switch to Google Apps, something we talked about not long after I was elected. We talked about, could we do that? And honestly, there were some questions about whether we could, but we finally came to the conclusion we could. And we save how much per month will we save?
We'll save $10,000 per year, so
Yeah.
approximately $8,500 a month.
The other part to that is it is a baby step in the direction of cloud computing, because the apps are essentially on the web if you want to use them. So there would be some computers that now have, an Office suite that you don't really have to buy Microsoft Office and keep updating that. I wish we could get away from the whole Windows thing, but that's coming up next in Mike's. It kills me every time we have to buy this software, but for right now, it seems we can't figure a way to get out from under it.
And we're buying software, if I may say, as Mike just said, for machines that are constantly breaking down.
So, as to the server situation, I can speak for Lee because he's not here. Lee said he wanted a scalable system. Well, we can move in that direction. We don't particularly have it right now. But one of the things that's happening is in the process of this, we figured out we can shed some of the storage space because there's a certain amount of deletion going on that we don't need to keep here anymore because it's really somewhere else. And the other point that Lee made was that he really thought we should have one main server site, and not keep making a new server site here, there, and everywhere. And as we looked at that, the challenge down there is we really hope that the library buys us out of that building in a few short years, and then the police department is moving again, and so it makes a lot more sense to have main server things happening here. So with that, we no longer think that we need any IT office up in the library space. So I've said that, but I think that's been communicated.
Mm-hmm.
The IT presence over there would be as much to do sort of user support and occasional server things as to keep a big server system going. Is that right?
Correct. And there will be a scaled down server there that will be the domain controller that will keep
Yeah.
the police system functional.
And you can do all this within the capital budget that we gave you for this year.
Correct.
Okay. So do you want to take these one at a time, or do you want to go to the end and give them approval, all of them? All of them? Keep going, Mike.
The next issues, do you want me to go to the phone system or talk about Windows 7?
You're driving.
Okay. We had approved, you'd approved this last year, an upgrade to Windows 7. We really didn't spend a lot of time in the subcommittee talking about it, or the ad hoc committee. I can tell you the reasons I feel we should continue with that. The implementation of Windows 7, basically Windows XP is not a viable system in the sense that you can buy it on new computers. So this next year we will replace about 20 computers. They will come with Windows 7. So we're going to convert to Windows 7 whether we want to or not. Because it's such a small staff, basically me right now, to have one operating system is a huge time saver. If somebody calls me, and if I have to keep, and it's right in my mind, it's usually not something written down, how do we fix that problem in Windows XP? How do we fix it in Windows 7? One of the first things we did when I came is we went to Windows XP. Having one operating system greatly reduces the maintenance time, the training time, and we just don't have extra. So we're going to have to go to it at some point. New systems that we get will require it. Windows XP, we can't buy copies again. We actually can go out into the market, and I priced them. They're about $190. I can buy Windows 7 for that same amount, but it's about $190 to buy somebody else's Windows XP. So I would recommend that we continue with that conversion process and do it to save time, to have everything in one compatible system, and to not have issues with compatibility with third-party systems. The FBI sends down, Homeland Security sends down, the state sends down. So that would be my recommendation there. We didn't get a chance to talk about that in great detail. The telephone systems, I have 3 bids that you should have in your packets. And one is the lower price bid is also compatible with our system here. I would recommend that we go with that. It will give us all of the requirements that we had to have a hybrid system, partially digital, partially analog, one that is upgradable to be a full digital system if we need it, and one that will allow us to have a network so that all city phones will be able to be interconnected. Now that doesn't include this, we would need to add those on, but this would allow that. So I'd recommend, as far as a new system for 700 First Street, we go with Baldwin Telecom's pricing. That's one part. The second part is to upgrade our system here. And there's only one quote in there, mainly because the other vendors didn't want to service this, or didn't service this system. So this would be taking our existing system, upgrading it so that it can be interconnected, would be the controlling system that all buildings could have extensions off of this, that calls could be transferred between buildings, and that would give us some upgrades in the quality of our phone service, making the ability to use a speakerphone actually functional. The third part is the library move. The current vendor, which is also happens to be Baldwin, the price is down to $675 to remove their system and to install it completely in the new building. For that, I don't believe it makes sense to scrap their current system and expand the one we were going to put in on First Street. The most cost-effective system is to just move theirs here, and that would be their cost, but it's greatly reduced from the original estimates. So on the phone system, those are the three parts of it. Any questions on those?
So do we have a total on all 3 phone bids?
If we went with moving the library system, we would have 6,700, 9,300, or 9,800, and $675.
So about a little over 17,000.
Correct.
You mentioned that this gives us speaker phone capability. Do we do web conferencing, or do we, if we want to interact with folks in other places, are we hooked in to do any web conferencing or utilizing those through our computers?
Not in itself. We can do that. We would hire their third-party vendors that we rent some space, and they will give us 15 connections, and we can do that. We don't have the bandwidth to do a true video conference. We can do it on the computers, but it's a very poor quality. It's jerky. It's the voice and the movements are uncoordinated. And this doesn't include that. What it would give us right now, if you use any of the phones in City Hall as a speakerphone, it's not full duplex. In other words, when I'm talking, and if you're talking, we don't hear anything. This would upgrade that to be a full duplex. In other words, we could both talk, you could hear it, you wouldn't have the dropped words, the dropped conversations.
Sure. It would be interesting to find out what it would cost to be able to do web conferencing, or, you know, to expand that, and just as a quote or a number to take a look at utilizing that at some point in the future.
I can find that out. Both of these systems can be upgraded. And actually, a large part of that isn't really the phone system.
No.
It's the servers we have, the bandwidth we have. We did get quotes on bandwidth. Right now, our current bandwidth is about 1.5 megabytes per second up. We looked at going to 15 megabytes a second, 45, and 1 gigabyte a second. The top ends, the top two, were over $3,000 a month, just paying for services. The middle one was about 370, which is worth considering. That would give us some additional capabilities. Right now, we're paying about $100 a month for what we have.
I don't think we have the need right now for that bandwidth to make it, responsible to pay the $400 a month. Because it would be fairly rare that we have the need to do a teleconference.
Right, and this, when we changed our email systems, to do that, I had to pull down everybody's email from the web and push it back up to the new system. All weekend, we were using virtually 100% of our bandwidth. We were at about 15 megabytes a second all weekend, and it functioned. Not fast, but
That's 15 up?
15, no, about 7 up and about 7.5, 8 down, which is actually way more than I've ever gotten before. Partly we did it Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, so there was no other demands.
The Comcast system gives you essentially, there's a base amount that you can pretty well rely on, and at times if you're the only one on their system in your neighborhood, then the speeds go way up. Right.
Comcast, I wouldn't have wanted to have a Comcast system somewhere near us. We probably slowed them down considerably, but we got it done.
Okay, so now within your original budget, we had the capital outlay budget for the server upgrades, and originally we had money in the police department budget for a police server. Now,
Correct.
what's happening there, Mike? I mean, do they need that anymore? Do they still need
No.
that? They won't need it.
No.
So can we, within our 2010 budget, as we had originally proposed, can we do these things?
If we use the money for the police server and the money that we're saving by reducing the cost, we will be about $4,000 short.
So I think it comes down to we are doing an optional upgrade here at City Hall, but it does improve service and our interconnectivity with, for example, the water utility and other even across to
Correct.
public safety. We can't transfer a call over there right now, for example.
Right.
We wouldn't have to do that part, and that part was done as a separate bid as the upgrade to City Hall, and Mike mentioned there was only one bidder, and it's $6,700. So if we did not do that this year and postponed that, say, to 2011, now we're not going to be connected to the police department
Correct.
the way we'd like to be.
We won't be connected to them if we don't do the upgrade.
We could
Not a
get
good
that out
plan.
of contingency, couldn't we?
The
Override.
4,000?
Yeah.
Well, and it's a capital improvement. There's still time that we are buying equipment that we could do some of this out of our 2010 capital budget, which has not been finalized. We could go back to the police department and ask them to pay for it out of their budget too. I think we should go ahead and approve it and get this done. I think, Mike, you've trimmed the phone system now. We've trimmed the server plan pretty significantly. We trimmed it down, and it's doing more than the bare minimum, but it looks like a good plan for the future. I like the fact that it's movable. So, I mean, all of this, we can move from there if and when we move to a different facility. So, Mike needs approval.
Move to approve, but we have actually two agenda items here that we're talking
Yeah.
about. One is telephone,
Yep.
and the other one was the network system. Do you want to combine them, or do you want to take them, Catherine, should we take
Better
them?
take them
in-
one at a time.
One at a time? Or on item C, move to approve the committee findings.
I'll second. I'm happy to hear we're not moving all of our server capabilities to the building on First Street.
Moving it into the cloud.
Well, we've got some challenges in this facility. I mean, we created a server room. It's not properly air conditioned and so on. We've got some challenges here at City Hall, but we can't do everything all at once in 2010. We either have to slow something down, as in the Windows 7 that's coming up. I'll give you a thought on that. But okay, so my thought was, I wish that we could, as we bought those new PCs, Mike, that we utilize our existing OEM license that we own for XP for the machine that we're replacing, and simply downgrade that new machine down to XP and run it as an XP machine for a year or two, and keep doing that. Essentially, that machine, we already own a license for XP for the one that's being replaced, which I don't know where it's going, but as long as we keep it, we own the license. And Mike explained to me that it would void our service contract with, for example, Dell, which will give us some customer service support, but they won't do that if we're running XP. So now we got a brand new computer, but we can't get service. And I don't know if that's a good trade-off or not.
And the other one is, even though an OEM means original equipment manufacturer, if I have a machine with Windows XP on it, I can't move that
Yeah.
to
So
a
I
new
didn't
machine.
understand that. So, I've been kind of broken down on the subject to the point where $25,000 to upgrade to Windows 7 just seems incredible for the size of our organization, but here we are. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes. How about telephone system?
Move to approve the quotes of the three given to us tonight by Mike.
All right.
Second.
There's a second. Lori?
All from Baldwin Telecom.
Yeah, so a little bit over $17,000 total for all three.
Who is this Central Telephone that was the competing bidder? There's kind of an odd bid sheet here. It doesn't have their phone number, address, or anything.
There actually was more attachments to that. Actually, it does, I think, have their address on the look at here. The
Plymouth, Minnesota.
central telephone, there's another section with that.
Okay.
And they're from Plymouth, and the other one is, there's two of them from Plymouth there.
Maybe it's because it's such small print, I didn't have my
Yeah.
glasses on. Oh, there it is. Well, the thing is, Baldwin Telecom is our current provider. This is one of those situations where we are not specifically precluded by state law from just going with that vendor. We do have more than just an equipment relationship with them. There's an ongoing service and maintenance relationship. And for that part, I know that Mike would just soon be dealing with them anyway. So if we'd have found a lower bidder, and I wish we could have, but it seems Baldwin Telecom's actually pretty competitive. And so if we had found a lower bidder, we more than likely would have bought the equipment from them and then still had Baldwin Telecom come and do our service because they're our local Panasonic dealer. That said, I think we should approve all of these. Other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Okay, thanks, Mike. With that, communications and recommendations from the mayor. Hot Air Fair starts tomorrow night. Encourage you to get out. We're going to have a great time. The theme is peace, love, and balloons. There's something for everyone. It's always fun. So tomorrow night at 7 o'clock is the parade downtown, the Torchlight Parade, and come on out and participate in the Hot Air Fair. Let's see. Any alderperson?
I'd like to make mention to council members that, is Paul in the booth tonight? Is that you, Paul? This is the last time you're going to see Paul. Paul is going on. It's too bad you can't come out here because then you won't be able to operate the cameras.
Yeah, he can come out.
Come on out and stand in the here.
It's like the Wizard of Oz. We're pulling back the curtain.
Yeah.
You got to come all the way up here. We know that thing runs itself because you.
Paul, you're better off right here where people can get a look at you.
Okay, so here's Paul, who's been providing these broadcasts for how many years?
Turn around, face the camera.
1 year. Thanks a lot, Paul.
He's leaving us to go to Hastings where he has a full-time
You always
position.
wanted to be on the camera. This was your chance. We'll make a YouTube video of it and get it out there
We can
right
tell
away.
people we knew you when, Paul.
All right. Good luck to you.
Good luck.
Very much.
Move to adjourn.
Any other alderperson have anything? City attorney? The motion to adjourn, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.